What do you think separates a good listing presentation from a great one that actually wins the business?
Listing presentation is arguably the most important skill set you need as a real estate agent. I spent so much time learning my listing presentation when I was coming up. I literally, I'd get asked if I could go to other people's listing presentations when I was first getting started, and I would just, anyone that would take me, I would go there. I would, try and practice my listing presentation on my family, on my friends. Like it was, I was obsessed with it. I built my own. There was no like listing presentation like manual back then. So I built my own one and I gave it to Randall back in the day. I was like, what do you reckon?
Do you still have that?
No, I don't know.
Wow.
I imagine that. Yeah. But I built my own one. I was like, made it on like word art or whatever. And I was just like, so this is like how I'm been like, and I'd read it at nighttime and stuff. Like, what a loser, but I was just obsessed with this thing. I wanted to have the sickest listing presentation. So I was ready for my first listing presentation way before I even did one. But the difference between the best listing presentations and the okay ones is a lot of these agents have won the listing before they've even got to the front door. And when I'm training my listing presentation to my agents, I focus on from the phone call when they ring you or you ring them to book the presentation in. So that is where you can win this thing like that. I've got this one coming up on Monday, and so he rang me and he's like, selling my place. And, I wanted to catch you on Monday. I want to put the house on the market next week. I'm going to pick an agent. And I said, great. I was like, fantastic. And I asked why you rang me. He said, well, I've seen that you sold this one around the corner. It's, it's comparable to ours. And is there anybody and I said, is there anybody that mentioned my name? I always like to thank them and, make sure that they're looked after as well for dropping my name. I've been doing this for a long time and I've got a lot of good past clients I like to support. Is there anybody that dropped my name? And he's like, no, I just saw you sign. I was like, okay, no worries. I was like, have we spoken before? And he's like, no. And I was like, hang tight, let me type your phone number into my system as I'm speaking to you. Type his phone number in. I said, oh, okay, well, you actually bought that block of land off a Freedom agent in the past. And he's like, oh yeah, I did too. This was like years and years ago. And I said, oh, that guy's not in the industry anymore. And he said, oh, no worries. And I said, so tell me more about the place. You obviously built this home and you've loved it. Like, why are you moving? And start asking questions, and I'm really not focused on anything but just getting to know this guy right now. I'm not like, oh my God, I've got a listing presentation. When I'll come over tomorrow. Yeah, sweet. Which a lot of agents do. You slow down, you get to know these people and say, so why are you selling anyway? And he's like, well, I want to get like a bigger block. And I said, oh, okay, well, it's staying in the Redlands. And he's like, yeah. And I said, well, you got a pen? And he's like, yeah. I was like, write these addresses down. I've got all these ones coming on soon. And I gave him like 5-6 addresses of properties that I've got coming on that are like bigger blocks in the area, whether or not he likes them or not. And he was like, oh yeah, brilliant. And he was stoked with all this information I was giving him. And I said, so you're picking an agent next week? And he's like, yeah. I said, well, what have I got to do to get it? And he's like, well, hopefully it is you, like we can figure this out. And I'm like, yeah, but like what have I got to do to get it? Like what's the most important thing to you? And he's like, well, I just want to see who's got the best plan and who's got the best marketing. And I said, so have you booked anyone else in yet? And he's like, yeah, I've got someone else booked in for 9:00. I said, so they were your first call? And he said, well, yeah. And I said, well, so they're in the box seat at the moment. I said, what have I got to do to get in the box seat? And he's just like, oh, no, he's not in the box seat. But like, I've known that person for a while. And I said, no, it's all good. It's all good. So how many agents are you getting over? And he's like, 3. And he said, can you come over at 10? And I said, well, I'd rather come over last. And he's like, why is that? And I said, well, you'll understand after, because I'll show you why I'm different to these other agents. And I said, why, and how I can improve, your sale process for you. And he said, oh, okay. So like, and he said, well, what about 11? I said, well, let's make it 12 because of just, I want to make sure you're done with all these agents. You've got enough time to assess what they've done, and I'll come over at 12 and we'll figure this out. And I said, what I'll do is I'll bring all the paperwork over with me as well, because if you are feeling good about this, we can make a decision straight away. You feel comfortable with that? And he was like, oh, yeah, that's fine. No worries. I said, look, I'm going to send you some information about me and my team right now. There's also a survey in that email that I'm sending you, and there's some questions, and I'm going to customize my presentation based off your needs. So if you can complete that for me before I come over, I'll put you in the diary here for 12 o'clock on Monday. I'm looking forward to seeing you. Before this conversation ends, is there anything that you want to know about me before I come over? And he said, no. I said, can you please do your homework on me before I come over? Check me out on socials, look at all my past sales, look at everything that I've got to offer, because I promise you I'm the right person to sell this house. And while I got you, just promise me you don't sign with anybody else on Monday, and you give me a chance to hear me out. Done.
Dude, I'm ready to give you my listing right now. And I'm not selling.
Well, this is where we're at. So now I'm like, sweet, here we go. So this is part one. Now it's like, I'm trying to win this thing before I've even got there, because I'm trying to turn up to not get it. You know what I mean? Me and this customer going to like connect? Are we on the same page here? Are they fairly priced? Is this someone I want to deal with? You know, it's like, do they want to deal with me? Is it feeling right? You know, so then I say to my team, I'm like, fantastic, this is what we've got going on. This is this property we're going to see on Monday. And then straight away, something goes out to that seller via email. Also, we get something over to their house, like a nice gift at their front door. So we're just cement planting all these seeds before we get there. Now I turn up to the listing presentation. And again, that's when it starts again. And can you win it at the front door? It's like, can you win it right there and then in that moment? And these are the things about like being a good agent and being like a really, really great agent. Because when I started to master this listing presentation, it's like my area knows if I'm going in, they're in trouble. You know what I mean? I can sense it. I can feel it, because the sellers say it to me. They're like, oh, they were a bit nervous about you, and they spoke about you, and they said all this about you, and I'm like, well, okay. And like everyone tries to like say that I'm not going to be there, or I'm not going to be doing the process, or he's going to just pass you over to one of his team or whatever, and I'm just like, sweet, no worries. I'm sitting here right now asking for your business, so clearly, you know, I want it. So, you know, it's just crazy. But if you can get this listing presentation nailed, it is going to be a game changer for your business. And we do so much training on the listing presentation. It's so important. And there's no better place to learn a listing presentation than actually in the environment doing it. So the reason why, you know, I feel like I've got the best listing presentation in the game, and I feel like I do. I'm happy to, you know, sit with anybody and show my listing presentation. And I really do feel like, you know, what we do at Freedom, how we flow, what I show the seller inside the listing presentation with how our database runs and how the buyers are managed and you know, the community I built and all the sales I've made in their area. I feel like we have a very, very solid listing presentation. So, you know, when you master this, it's going to be game changer for your business. It really is. Yeah,
we've got probably 100 hours of private training.
Yeah,
a lot of which are on listing presentation as well. If you want access to that, just hit either one of us up. We'll just link it straight to you.
And it's in Agent Growth as well.
Oh yeah,
there's an appraisal and listing presentation in the training course of Agent Growth. You should be doing them. Like I said in the last podcast, if you're a new agent, you need to be learning all this stuff before you get here. You're not going to be doing a listing presentation for ages, but start practicing it right now. Like, why are you going into the grand final without kicking a ball? That's madness. It's like going into the grand final without training all year. It's absolutely stupid. You know, the listing presentation is the grand final. It's like you've done all of this work, all of this training, all of this momentum to walk into the arena to be like, oh my God, we should have practiced. Absolutely madness.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because you only really have however many opportunities in that particular moment, but like how many times have you practiced that moment before you're actually in that moment? Like,
seriously.
So how do you balance showcasing your expertise with making the presentation about the client's needs and goals as well?
Again, that's where that survey can come into play. If you send the survey out before you go to a listing presentation, and then you get the answers that you need, and you can sit with the seller. And often when I'm sitting with a seller in a listing presentation, it starts off by just rapport building and asking a lot of questions, you know, and then obviously relating that back to the survey, and then directing my presentation based off what the customer needs and what they want and where they're at. So, you know, if one of their most important things to them was keeping their costs down, I would say, look, in the survey, it says that one of the most important things for you was no upfront costs and keeping your costs down. So obviously, I'll customize a package for you, and I'll make sure that you've got no upfront costs. Would you feel okay with that? So I can take this where they need it to go. I'm not going to, if someone says the most important thing is keeping their costs down, I'm not going to drop a $6,000 marketing package on them.
Get the prestige package.
Well, we still can get it, but they're not going to be paying for it up front. You know what I mean? It's like, you can still have this. You can just pay for it at the end. It's like, there's just ways around this. But again, if I don't realize that, or my coach has told me like they've got to pay up front, they're not motivated if they don't pay up front, or whatever. It's just like, no, it's just a different world these days. A lot of people don't have $6,000. They're selling their house for a reason. They don't have that kind of money spare. So you got to understand who this person is that you're sitting in front of, and figure out why they're selling. The amount of times I get listings, and it's just because the agents they've just pushed their narrative. They haven't really got to know the seller. So they've gone in hard, and they're like, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do this. And you're like, bro, if you'd have just slowed down a little bit and just realized that this person would love to have done that, but they can't because of certain reasons, you'd get their listing. Maybe that's not right for their business because they want to have a certain look and feel, and everything has to be a certain way for their listings. So that's okay. But I'm in a people business. I want to work with people that want my help. So why would I turn someone away that, is desperately needing my help? So, and all you got to do is get to know these people.
Yeah, back when I was 18, trying to sell video products out of my own, all I cared about was obviously my video package and getting my video package sold. So I was going into sales meetings being like, buy from me. This is what I have, like buy from me, and not listening to them at all. And yeah, that's clearly where I lost a lot of business, because then you look back and it's like, oh, they actually told me a lot of there were clues for what they actually wanted, and I didn't listen. I was like, no, buy this thing.
Yeah, it's like, it's good as a business to have these set things, but you've got to be flexible, you want to try and get them to that for sure. But you got to build your customer up, don't you? You got to get them through the door. You got to give them a taste, It's like the best restaurants, they give you a little taste of things before you might, get the main course. It's like, you got to just drip feed it into them.
Real estate agents, what if you had a course that could give you all of the tools needed to absolutely kill it in 2025? I've built this course. I've been in real estate for 20 years. I've listed thousands of properties, and I want to give this course to you now. I used to sell this course for $2,000 a pop, and now I'm going to give it to the first 100 people for absolutely free. It's yours for the taking. Snap it up.
So what's one mistake that you see agents making in listing presentations that instantly lowers their chance of winning a listing?
Again, I would say they're far too rushed. They're far too quick, and a lot of the stuff we've spoken about today is the things that people are getting wrong. And that phone call at the start, I can't even tell you how important that is. And it's just so important that you get that right. And it's even trying to figure out how much these people want for their home. It's like you're trying to find out how much they're trying to achieve, or why they're selling it. And if you are on the phone to these people and they say, oh yeah, we're thinking about selling, and can you come over next week, and you book it in, and you're like, great, I booked it in, and you're like, sweet, you just absolutely cooked it, because you haven't asked them all these things that they're going to ask you when you get there. It's like, if the seller wants 1.5 million for the house, and they say to you in the listing presentation, so how much do you think our house is worth? And you say, well, on the phone, you told me that you wanted 1.5 million. Is that still the case? And they say, oh, well, yeah, if it's around there, look, I'm more than comfortable with those numbers. I'd like to show you a strategy how potentially, we can push for a little bit more. But I'm going to bring you all the offers, and I'm going to show you everything that, the buyer wants to do with this property. And I'm going to be very transparent with the whole process. But my goal is to get you the most amount of money. And I think if you can put the right plan in play, I think we can get you a very good price for this home. Are you comfortable with me diving into that with you right now and showing you how I think I can get you more money for the house? But if you didn't know that they wanted 1.5 million, and you say it's probably, like a 1.4 plus, they'd be like, oh, okay. And it's just like bang, and you see this wall go up, and it's like they think their house is worth 1.5. They think you think now it's worth 1.4. You ain't getting that listing. You're done. Just one hit, that one moment. And if I haven't got the price, this is what I do there these days. If I haven't got the price, if I'm walking in and for some reason someone else has booked this prezzo for me, or something's happened where we haven't managed to get their price, or they won't give it to me over the phone or something, I'll sit in there and I'll say, and I'm literally run around, this is awesome. How much you want for this? I'm like, I'm on the hunt. I'm going for the price. And they're like, oh, literally, I got no idea. I'm just trying to figure out what the house is worth. And I'll say, oh, you must have some sort of idea. You know, you live
they
here.
always do, or
They get there. They'll try and like defend it like 3-4 times.
but as in you think sellers always have a number? Or?
Of course.
Right.
Yeah, everyone knows roughly.
Okay.
Shout something out. It's all good. You know, but you want the seller to make the first move, because if you're making the move and you get the move wrong, you're in big trouble. Like, it's just, you're not getting the listing. Like, why would they list for someone that thinks their house is worth less than what they do? Doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, I'd always just be like, oh, you must have some sort of number in mind. And they're like, oh, well, no, we really want you to tell us. I said, yeah, but, you know, like, I'm just quite intrigued with where you think this sits right now, because I think you might be surprised with what it's worth. And I'd love to just hear your number. It doesn't matter if it's crazy, you know, like, just give me a goal. Like, just tell me a number, because I'd love to get your opinion on where this sits. And they're like, well, and they say it, you know, and I'm like,
so what do you do when it's like way higher than you kind of want?
Say, no worries. Okay, cool. Nice. So with the with that number, you know, you're going to need to do everything right to get it. Absolutely everything right, because that's obviously a good number for the area, but I'm not scared of it. I said, I'm here to make records happen. Like, I'm the one that you need to be listing with if you want that kind of a number, you know, and they know it's a big number, you know. So, but again, if you're shutting that number down straight away, you ain't the right agent. Because how do you know it's not worth it? Well, do you got the crystal ball? Well, do you know who's coming next week? Do you know how motivated that buyer is? Do you know there's something that they really need about this property? You don't. So why are you ruling it out? Might happen.
It seems to be very commonplace for agents to do that.
Yeah.
Just filmed a story with one of the agents the other day, and all the agents that went before him told them a specific number, and he ended up getting, you know, $30,000-$40,000 more than that, and didn't say any number in the listing presentation. And yeah, it's interesting how that does. Like, that's the proof, really.
Yeah, and the seller will hold you accountable to that number. So if you say to them in the listing present, they say, well, what do you think it's worth? And you say, oh, I think it's worth 1.5. And then they were thinking around 1.5, for instance, they'd be like, okay, well, yeah. And say you get a 1.4 offer and you're pushing that, and you say, well, listen, I think you should negotiate with them. We've been on the market for 6 weeks, you know, like, we've got 1.4 right now. And they're like, you told me 1.5 at listing price. You told me 1.5. Get them up. And you're like, wow. And again, like, you got the listing, congratulations, but you can't sell it now because you've cooked it again. So there's just all of these like moves that, you know, you can really damage your whole, not just the presentation, but your whole campaign by giving out the wrong advice or not getting the right things that you need before the prezzo.
So how much of the success comes down to the content of the presentation versus the way that it's delivered?
Bit of both. Think obviously everyone's different. Like, people are different. Some people like to have a conversation. Some people like to see things. You know, some people, they want to dive into your database and they want to show you some things, you know. So I try to cover all bases. I like to talk. I like to get to know these people. I like to be, you know, an advisor to them. I like to sit with them and get to know them. I like to compliment them. I like to talk with them about their house and how nice it is and things I've got in common with them, those types of things. So I like to have the conversation. I like to do a bit of role play, tell some stories, all that sort of stuff. I also have my booklet in front of me, and I've got some nice beautiful pictures on there and some lovely things and some things about my team. And so, like, for the people that are more visual, they've got this. And then for the people that might be a little bit more analytical, I've got my iPad with me, and I can show them buyers, and I can show them some stats, and I can show them all these types of things. So again, it depends who you're sitting in front of. Some people may not need half of that. You know, some people might just want to have the chat, you know. So you got to read the play. And when you're in these things, you got to realize who you're with, realize who you're up against, and play it out.
Interesting. And so what role do you reckon storytelling plays in, like, the whole building trust? Because you mentioned telling stories there.
Definitely, yeah. I'm a big storyteller, especially in my listing presentations. I love it. I'll even do role play with them inside there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I say, people are going to just, especially if it's like leaving it open to offers. Or for instance, say they don't want to put a price on for the first week or so. I say, fantastic. Like I'm keen for that. Because the first question that usually happens when people ring me is how much? They say, Josh, how much? And I'm typing their phone number into the system while I'm talking to them. I say, well, we met before. And they say, oh, yeah, we met a couple of your open homes, and I'm bringing them up in the system. And I'm like, oh, yeah, we met you the one around the corner. We just sold that for 1.2 million. I've got a buying opportunity on you here that says that you've got up to 1,250 to spend. And you spoke to Maddie from my team and Caleb from my team a couple of weeks ago. They mentioned that you went through this one over at this street. So you're obviously looking in this sort of price range right now, and you got up to 1,250. Is that still the case? And they'll say, yeah, well, we do. And I say, well, fantastic. This would be a good deal like that. Why don't you come through on the weekend? Tell us what you want to pay. I've got realistic sellers. We want to sell the home, first open home on Saturday, and we want to get it done. So come along. I'll register you into the open home now. And I do that role play with them rather than me as the agent say, oh, well, the seller's looking for 1.2, or around there. You may as well just had a price on the property, and you may have just capped the seller's potential and, slammed on the brakes and cost that buyer the deal as well, because there might be a random buyer that turns up to the open home you've never spoken to before and believes the property is worth 1,250, and you've told that buyer on the phone 1.2, and they're like 1.2. And then this guy over here offers 1,250, and you say to that buyer, you say, well, I've got this other buyer that wants to pay more money. And they're like, no, well, we've offered fair. And you're like, well, yeah, I know, but like this other offer's coming hot, and like I need you to come up if you want it. And they're like, nah, because they won't come up because you've already mentioned this number to them. And now they lose the property, and then they hate you. That's the agent. So again, it's about trying to get the most amount of money, but also not burning buyers. It's like there's all of these little intricacies with handling buyers, and in that role play inside with a seller. I usually do that one. That's like how I'll handle the inquiry and what I'll say about them. And I'll say, look, I've got realistic sellers here. They just got their eye on something they want to do next, and they've got the house presented perfectly. They've done everything I've asked in terms of marketing. They're just really committed towards this sale. But if they know what they've got here, they know they've got a great property. This is what I say to them inside the listing presentation, how I'm going to talk to the buyer over the phone, and they love it. Obviously telling stories about some negotiations, telling stories about auctions as well. So for instance, if someone is unknown about an auction and they're like here or there, I have got all these stories, and I'm like, oh, I had this one 2 weeks ago, and this is what happened, and and this is what happened here, and I can tell them all these stories, so. But yeah, if you don't personally have stories, agents, then get into your office and find the stories, because there's so many stories inside your office. There's all these positive things that are happening with sales, with buyers, and make them your stories for now until you've got your own.
Nice. And finally, just quickly, how can agents use the listing presentation not only to secure that listing, but to build a long-term relationship with the clients?
Yeah, nice. The listing presentation isn't necessarily about just getting paid. You know what I mean? It's like, is this the right decision for the seller to sell this house? Sometimes it's a tough one to get your head around as an agent, because you do want the listing, you want to get paid, like you want this commission so badly. But if you can sit in the pocket with them and just talk to them about, is this really the right move, you selling this house? Like you could keep it, you're young, like you could pull out your equity, turn this into an investment, and then go again. Like, do you really need this money? I could, get a really high valuation for you. You've got 6 years of no capital gains tax if you, move out now, because this is your principal place of residence. There's all these little things that you can sit with them and explain to them, like maybe selling isn't the right move for you. Because again, it's not just about getting paid. It's about building a relationship with someone that trusts you forever, and you're their agent. And then they're the ones that recommend you, because you're not now going over to people's house to get listings to make sales. You're going over to meet your clients. Is this someone that I'm going to work with for hopefully their next 4 or 5 sales, and hopefully their kids, and hopefully their friends and family? And if it is, fantastic, And if it isn't, that's okay too. It's on you. It's all good. Catch you later. If you don't want my help, don't take it. It's fine. So it's like you're finding your people, but I think if you, in the listing presentation, don't come across as a a needy agent, just wanting things, just starving, just giving away everything for free, discounting your commission, cheap, you know, like, yeah. And it feels like there's a lot of that happening at the moment with agents. Like they're all just like giving away everything and reducing their comm like straight off the back, and they're not standing their grounds, and they're just trying to make a sale, you know. They just want some money. They just give me some money. I just need some money. And it's like, oh, you're always going to be one of these people that's just chasing money all the time. You're never going to have the whole marketplace just want to come to you. So I don't know how that mindset will change with a lot of people. I think maybe just trying to live more in the abundance, you know, like feeling like you've already made it or whatever. I think if you're really confident and you know that you're going to kill it either way, if you do or don't get this listing, like it's all going to be fine, you know? So I don't know if that happens over time or...
Well, that kind of goes back to what we were talking about before as well. Like they're going in there thinking about them and only them. But this mindset you're talking about, you're going in there actually thinking about what the customer needs and things that they maybe haven't even thought about. And that really does present you as like an advisor.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, he actually cares about what we could do. Because like, yeah, same. If you came into my house and said, why don't you use the equity that you have to buy another property? I'd genuinely be like, wow, like rather he's not just begging for my business.
Yeah. I had one last night, these two sisters, and the mum was there as well. And the two sisters they're not fully on the same page yet, but it feels like they're going to sell this house, but they're not fully ready, you know, and the mum's there trying to help them, and they're all just trying to make this big decision whether they keep it or whether they sell it. And I said, I'm like, these are both good options for you. I said, the positives of you keeping it is that you've got a really solid investment property here for years to come, okay? The only problem with keeping it is you've got two decision makers here, you know, and one of you might want to sell one day when the other one doesn't want to sell, you know. And right now you can get your money and you can invest it into things that, you know, you can decide what to do with it when the time's right. You know, like you're both at that age right now, and maybe sooner or later one of you might have children, and you might want to have a bigger house, and you might want to use this money, and maybe the market's not there, you know, and it's not a great time to sell it, but one of you wants to sell it. You know, you got to factor in all these things. You don't want to create resentment between each other. You know, right now you can get a really good price for this property, but I think if you're going to keep it, what you should do is you should set some time frames around of how long you're going to keep it for, and that you agree to that, and so it's all set in stone. So you say, well, in 3 years we'll sell this, you know, but it doesn't sell beforehand, you know, like, or create some sort of agreement between you so that when you go, and they were just like, we hadn't even thought about any of that, and I'm just like, it's all good, I've got a rental department, we'll rent it for you, I'm sweet. It's all good, whichever way you want to go is fine. And I said, but you feel comfortable with me? Would you like me to be your agent if you do want to sell it? And they were like, yeah. I'm like, all right, well, you guys decide and we'll come back to us when you're ready, you know. So yeah, again, it's a relationship game, you know. You're dealing with people that hopefully are going to be your clients for life. Hopefully you do a great job in that listing presentation, you sell it, they come back to you, you know, and then your life gets way easier because you got these repeat referral customers coming back to you every year. It's just gets simple with real estate.
Well, I'm sure we could talk about listing presentations for years.
Seriously.
So as I said, we have some training. Hit us up if you want it. Thanks for the chat.
Get stuck in. See you later.